I know coaches and players would push back on this, but it is a big storyline in this game. You wrote about it for us at Fox Sports this week. Is just this idea that has really followed both of these teams that they can't win the big one. Dallas got the win against Philly a couple weeks ago, so maybe people are going a little easier on them, but Miami, this is still that narrative. And Mike McDaniel's talking about, I gave my players permission to tell y'all to F off and all that fun stuff. Do you see, and again, going back to like the play calling aspect of this, is there, I mean, surely the Dolphins want to try to impress people with this opportunity, even if they don't admit that. I'm sure they would love to.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Dolphins specifically, this big game theory, this big game deficit that they have. Now, their best win is against the Denver Broncos when the Denver Broncos were 0-3. So keep that in mind. Like the Cowboys, at least they have one trophy on their shelf for the season. The Dolphins have no impressive wins. They've just done an amazing job of beating worse teams. It's kind of incredible. Like that, you look at the Bills, for example, they're so all over the place. You can't make sense of any of their wins or losses. It's just nonsense. The Dolphins are very like cut and dried. It's like they beat teams for the most part that are worse than them. They lose to teams for the most part that so far we can only determine are better than them. Like both of you, I think that they still have a shot. You and I, excuse me, I think they have a shot to be dangerous in the postseason. We've said that since before the season started, but they haven't really. I mean, there's no real basis. But when you look at the numbers between big games and in games that are against worse teams, you see the offense is as consistent as they can be. They're putting
Right.
up rather than the first most points like they currently are. Their scoring total drops a little bit, but it's still against these over 500 teams. It would still be good for second best in the NFL if we just isolated those games of above 500 teams that the Dolphins have played. So that should be enough to win, right? So what's going wrong here? They're safe with the football. It's at about the same giveaway ratio. Well, let's talk to Vic Fangio, the Dolphins defensive coordinator, because he's the one that is coming up short. His unit is the one that's coming up short. The Dolphins pass defense is the one that is most substantially different. They are letting up 100 more passing yards per game against these above 500 teams. I'd have to revisit the points per game total. I honestly forgot it since yesterday, but it's a substantially different number of how many points they're allowing per game. And that's where these big games are sort
I
of
can
getting
I
away
can
from
help you
them.
with that, Henry.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
can are against teams below 500, the Dolphins are allowing 16. Against teams above 500, it's 30.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, I mean you're
doubles.
a double in the production allowed by this defense.
So it's a totally different defense. And I think you can't just say it's injuries because, you know, I think they're going to get healthier this week. They might have Javon Holland back, but he's got NMCL sprains in both of his knees, which is crazy. And then we talked about, Xavier Howard and Deshaun Elliott, starters in their secondary. And that's, I mean, past defense weaknesses, past defensive starters aren't there. It's an obvious correlation. So it will be interesting. This pass defense in Dallas, pass offense in Dallas is like sensational. Obviously, Dak Prescott until last week was an MVP candidate. Probably could be one with another good week this week. But I'm fascinated to see how that defense holds up because I think the offense will find a way. Mike McDaniel will find a way to put up points. The defense we have seen historically has found a way to fail and let its offense down.
Well, let me ask you this because, and look, I mean, I came on the show last week, and I'm not saying I thought for sure Dallas was going to beat Buffalo, but I damn sure thought they were going to put up more than 10 points, and 7 of those 10 came when the game was not close. And so my question for you is, do you think the Dolphins can pressure Dak consistently with 4? Because I think that was the key for Sean McDermott is Buffalo's defensive line. ate Dallas for lunch. And I mean, sure, part of that is that Zach Martin left that game early, but even with Zach Martin in there, I'm not sure how much of a difference it makes. And when you can do that, the way that the Bills just clogged all those throwing lanes with guys dropped in coverage, it was gross, and clearly it worked. So I wonder, can Miami replicate that success with Bradley Chubb and some of those other guys?
Yeah. Well, speaking of injuries, Jalen Phillips tore his ACL. He's out for I believe ACL or Achilles, but
I
season-ending
think it was
injury.
his Achilles, yeah.
Achilles. And so season-ending injury there. They've had they've had Bradley Chubb the whole season, and sort of in replacement of Phillips, they've got Van Ginkel and Manuel Agba. So sort of a 1-2 punch, I'd say, on the other edge. And then in the interior is Christian Wilkins, who's actually playing probably better than any of the players I just mentioned. He is as dominant of a defensive tackle as there is in the NFL at this exact moment. So I would say with those names, the Dolphins can get good pressure. What the Bills have that the Dolphins don't have is depth. The Bills can go almost 8 deep when they're fully healthy. Now, I think last week they didn't have AJ Epinesa, so they weren't 8 deep. And I believe Jordan Phillips might have gotten injured in the game. So diminished slightly, but the point stands is like when you have 8 players that you can play on that defensive line, and the offensive line is getting exhausted by the end of the game, and you're filtering in pass rushers. It's a huge advantage from a fitness standpoint. And Von Miller, for example, is playing a very small number of snaps right now because he's still getting healthy. But notice when Sean McDermott is deploying Von Miller, it's at these crucial moments of the game where he can potentially change it. So I want to see whether this Dolphins defense can do exactly what you're saying. What I worry about maybe is if it's a close game at the end of the game, whether they may not have the legs to really put away the Cowboys, and whether that pass offense might light up a little bit more than they were able to do against Buffalo.
At the very least, let's hope for a more entertaining game, right? Like I think
Yes.
that the
Yeah.
expectation in Buffalo was like high 20s, low 30s, and I mean Buffalo got there to their credit, but not so much on the Dallas side. So at the very least, I'm hoping for a more entertaining game. I think it's worth mentioning Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle again. Stephon Gilmore played the game of his life against AJ Brown a couple weeks ago, excuse me. But this duo, as many interceptions as the Cowboys might have, Deron Bland might have this season, I do think this, of course, it's a mismatch. It's a mismatch for every team in the league, provided Tua Tagovailoa has enough time to throw, which it seems like he always does, right?